Ours is a big world full of awe and intrigue. And humans have been around this planet for about 2 million years right now, which might seem like a long time. But when compared to the Earth's very own existence, it's a laughable 0.2% of it. And in this relatively short amount of time, we have progressed and advanced further than any other species that we know of. And now it almost seems like information is available right at our fingertips. Because they pretty much are. But you get the point. And yet there are some facts that seem to fade into obscurity. And so here I am to point these facts out to you guys. Here are 5 facts that you probably do not know of. In 1936, right before the eruption of World War II, Adolf Hitler made a speech during the Berlin Olympics opening ceremony, which was broadcasted to around 41 countries all across the globe and was likely watched by millions and millions of people. Now there's a reason why this speech is special. It's that this speech was broadcasted at such a high frequency that it is very likely that these signals have escaped the Earth's ionosphere. In other words, these signals have escaped Earth and has continued to emanate throughout the universe. Now this has led some to believe that the first thing potential aliens might hear from humankind are the words of Adolf Hitler. Now, this is the exact plot of a book written by Carl Sagan, and it was even made into a movie in 1997, but this remains within the realms of science fiction. On a remote island in the Southeast Pacific Ocean, hundreds of goddamn huge statues can be seen, and these are called the Moai. At some point during the first millennium, people settled here on this island and developed a culture which would later be known as the Rapa Nui culture of Easter Island. Ever since its discovery in 1722, people all over the world have been trying to figure out how exactly they erected these statues which could weigh up to 86 tons. 86 tons! Now, not only that, they also transported a lot of these statues to various locations all around the island. Now, what makes this so fascinating is that the sheer scale of these gigantic monoliths and how they transported them, as the island was completely treeless when they did this, which basically eliminates the possibility of wheels, pulleys, logs and other related mechanisms being used. How or why exactly they erected these statues, we may never know. In 1985, when the tech giant Apple was still relatively a new company, a power struggle developed between the founder Steve Jobs and the then CEO John Sculley. And as a result of this, Apple's board of directors removed Steve Jobs from his management duties, which ultimately resulted in his resignation from the company. After his resignation, however, Apple would struggle financially for many years to come. Meanwhile, Steve Jobs founded a new company called Next Inc., which would go on to produce a couple of PCs, but most importantly developed software such as the NetStep and the OpenStep operating systems, which would later serve as the building blocks of the Mac OS X operating system. Due to the Next Inc.'s continued growth and Apple's continued financial failures, Apple would later go on to purchase Jobs' company, and as a part of the deal, Jobs returned to the company that he co-founded. Once back at the position that he was at, he made significant changes to the product line and introduced the Mac OS X operating system, iTunes, and most importantly, iPod, which became an instant bestseller. Following the success of the iPod in 2007, Apple released the iPhone and has since become the world's most valuable brand. The year is 1914. World War I is raging. In France, a wounded German soldier is struggling to get away from the British forces that were slowly closing in. This German soldier spots a British soldier in the distance. The German soldier is too wounded to even lift his own weapon. Seeing the helpless state of this lonesome, poor soldier, the British soldier lowered his rifle and chose not to shoot. Both the soldiers locked eyes and had a silent conversation. Appreciating the humanity of the British soldier, the German nods and wanders off into the unknown. The British soldier, Private Henry Tondé, would not find out that the person he did not shoot that day was 29-year-old Lance Corporal Adolf Hitler. Author Morgan Robertson wrote a novel called Futility. It described the maiden voyage of a ship called the Titan that sinks after hitting an iceberg. Does that sound familiar to you? If you assume that this book was just a blatant copy of the real-life incident of the sinking of the RMS Titanic, you'd be wrong. You see, the book was published in 1898, 14 years before the Titanic sank or was even conceptualized. And yet the similarities between the real-life tragedy and this book, which was published 14 years earlier, is very, very striking. In the book, the Titan was called unsinkable. So was the Titanic. Both ships were British-owned vessels around 800 feet long, and both hit an iceberg and sank. In the book, the Titan sank at midnight in April, 400 miles from Newfoundland. The Titanic sank at midnight on April 14, 1912, 400 miles from Newfoundland. The Titan had 3,000 passengers and not enough life jackets. The Titanic had 2,207 passengers and, well, you get the idea. Man, that was ultra specific. The only thing this book is missing are Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.